has been raining for the past couple of hours today and most of the day yesterday. It's still Thursday, and we're still live here at Rama Jammas. Welcome to 15 and Counting, Touchdown Alabama Magazine's premier football show, coming to you once again live from inside of the heartbeat of the University of Alabama, right here at Rama Jammas. I'm your host today, Stephen M. Smith. Beside me once again, we have our co-hosts Ivan White and Maxwell Taylor. Fellas, how you guys doing today?
Good. Doing great.
Doing outstanding. On this past weekend, last weekend, the Alabama Crimson Tide went up to Lexington for the first time since 2009 to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. Back then, this ball game, of course, was Mark Stoops' statement game and trying to see could his team compete with the defending champions, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And in that first half, well, basically the first quarter, looked kind of scary there. Alabama had 2 first quarter turnovers, 2 fumbles, but despite that, the Crimson Tide were able to clean up their act, get it together, and from the second quarter on in, really dominated Kentucky by winning 48-7. Starting off here with the running backs T.J. Yeldon and Kenyon Drake. With you, Maxwell, assess their play. How do you think Kenyon Drake and T.J. Yeldon really played against Kentucky?
Well, after that little kind of miss up at the end zones and twice in the first quarter, I feel like Yeldon and Kenyon Drake really came out strong, really ran through their blocks, picked up a lot of good yardage. Kenyon Drake showed that he was very good, capable of changing pace back for T.J. Yeldon. And T.J. Yeldon broke off one of those runs that made us think, oh yeah, he's that talented. Overall, I thought the running backs were very good. Very well done after the fumbles, and they seem to understand that, hey, if we're going to run the ball here, that we can't make mistakes because Saban will not play us if we do make mistakes like that.
And going on to you, Ivan, how big has the luxury of getting these Alabama running backs for Nick Saban? How big is it to have when one running back messes up? He has that pressure of other running backs behind him that if I mess up, somebody can take my spot.
I've been preaching it the entire season, Stephen. It's going to be a different team, not just the 1 running back, 2 running back. It's going to be the 3 to 4 running back set. The fact that you have multiple weapons that it's like a Swiss Army knife. You do multiple things at different times at different points in the game. It's going to be vital for this year's team. It's going to be something that most SEC teams don't even have half the luxury of. So most SEC teams struggle to find even a starting running back at some points right now. Kentucky. But
We're throwing them out there already?
I mean, they've been Kentucky all season long. I told you they've been our favorite program on the show all season long for a reason. I mean, I don't blame Kentucky for hanging for being 0-0. I blame the Tide for that. I mean, obviously it should have been 14-0 easily, at least by the end of the first quarter.
I thought 21-0.
21-0. I'm trying to cut Kentucky some slack right now. Unfortunately, we're just going to go all out this week. But I still say it was more of a Bama. It's like you don't have that every week where you can mess up twice and still have a 0-0 tie. You can be losing the turnover margin by 2 and still somehow find a way to win 48-7.
Luckily, Alabama was not playing LSU or Ole Miss or even Vanderbilt at this point, because those teams would probably capitalize on those turnovers. But Kenyon Drake and T.J. Yeldon both rushed for over 100 yards in the game and both had 2 touchdowns. For the first time this season, Amari Cooper was not MIA in this game. He actually had 3 receptions for 64 yards. Actually came out battling the toe injury and put on a pretty good showing. Didn't have really a breakout game, but he did have 3 catches for 64 yards. And even Kevin Norwood had 4 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. So these 2 receivers that were basically A.J. McCarron's bread and butter last year struggled a little bit this year, but for them to come out in this game and kind of get back on the right track. Maxwell, how do you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't say Kevin Norwood has struggled at all. He has been AJ's number 1 receiver trying to get that 3rd down. He's always been that receiver for us. He's going to catch the ball when the ball is known to you. Now, Amari Cooper and the other wide receivers in the Alabama receiving unit did drop a lot of balls this year, which is really
I.e. Kitty Bell.
I.e. Kitty Bell, which is really just unnatural for them. I really still believe that Amari Cooper's battling this injury, but he's starting to show that he's getting healthy. He has 3 catches, and one of his catches for big yardage, he shook off 2 or 3 defenders and almost had a touchdown. And that's what we need to see from Amari Cooper, that he's getting healthy and that he's trying to get back into this offense. And it was a good sign to see him go out and play this week. Very good.
It was a very good sign. Another good sign for Alabama against Kentucky was the play of A.J. McCarron. He was 21 for 35 passing for a career high 359 yards and a touchdown. And one thing I noticed in the game against Kentucky, Ivan, is that AJ didn't force anything. When he saw nothing was there, he either got the ball away or he pulled it down, picked up 3 to 4 yards, slid down to protect his body, and played the next play. How smart of a job that was for AJ McCarron. Not force it, but just pull it down, get what you can get, and get to the next possession.
I believe he was just doing that for the reason that we already are losing a turnover margin. We've been very lucky that Kentucky hasn't been able to capitalize off any of those turnovers already. So I'm going to do my job to protect the ball as much as possible by not forcing anything. I'm making sure I slide and not fumble, making sure I don't take myself out the game, because if I take myself out the game, that's a very vital weapon gone with the Tide offense.
Enter Blake Sims.
Enter Blake Sims, which obviously he's been good, but subpar opponents again. In nobody's time, like nobody cares about that last few minutes when Blake Sims comes in, unless you're a Blake Sims fan and you enjoyed the past couple weeks. With that being said, it's still AJ doing what AJ's done throughout his entire career at University of Alabama. He's been a smart quarterback. He's been called a game utilizer. Everybody's been calling him called a clock manager and just making sure the run game stays happy and still do play action. But it takes a quarterback that has talent to pull off the play action phase. It takes a quarterback that has time to throw those touchdown passes off the play actions, and that's what he hasn't been appreciated for that enough in his time here with Crimson Tide.
Going back to what you already mentioned, Ivan, about McCarron being the game manager. Maxwell, in the game against Kentucky, you saw ESPN analysts, of course, Todd McShay and Brock Hewer talk about McCarron being a game manager. McCarron not being, McCarron's because of the system that he's as good as he is. If he goes to the NFL, with the system hurt him. Talk about how it is for a quarterback. You have to manage situations in order to be a good quarterback.
Well, I think the best quarterbacks, even in college football and in the NFL, are game managers. Peyton Manning is one of the best game managers I've ever seen.
True.
And Russell Wilson is a game manager. Yes, he looks downfield, and yes, he has that ability to run and do regrets, but he doesn't really use his legs to just break away. He doesn't see the run as the first thing he does. He goes, checks downfield, look at where his receivers are. If he finds it open, then he throws the ball, or if he doesn't, he runs and tries to get not a negative yard play, or he'll try to find positive yards with his legs. What AJ McCarron does is pretty much the same thing. He's smart with the football. He's not trying to lose the team the game. He's not just trying to win. He's trying to show people that he can command an offense. And when you have a quarterback that can command an offense for as long as he has, and win as much as he has, he's 32 as a starter. I don't care if you're playing in whatever conference. That's ridiculous. He has 2 back-to-back national championship rings, and 2 as a starter really just shows you how good he is. Yes, he has that one from his red shirt freshman year, but that doesn't really matter. What really matters is that he took us down to LSU, won that game 21-0, when we really thought we didn't have any faith in him. We stripped that game manager role really from AJ McCarron when we played LSU because we believed that he would make the plays to win that game. Same thing at Notre Dame. Really, we had the run game, and yes, the run game was working, but AJ McCarron put his foot on the gas and completely stomped out Notre Dame in the last few light quarters of the game with Amari Cooper and the wide receivers. I just don't see him being as bad as a quarterback as Todd McShay would say. I wouldn't say bad is the right word, really. I'd say more that he's a third tier. I think that AJ McCarron is an upper echelon player and really deserves that player, but because he doesn't have the mobility as say as Jameis Winston or Johnny Manziel
Or Marcus
Mariota, he's kind of underrated. But I feel like if he goes to the NFL behind a team with wide receivers, and there are teams like that. Look at the Texans. Look at the Browns. They have good weapons for him to use. It's somebody with a line, somewhere where he just doesn't have to scramble a lot. He'll be very successful because he already understands his checkdowns, his reads, when to throw the ball away, and when to just go off with the feet. He's very, very systematic with his quarterback.
And to wrap up the segment real quickly, the best quarterback in the NFL I can think of right now that's comparable to AJ McCarron is Alex Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. He's not throwing up flashy numbers. He's not throwing up numbers that'll be on the SportsCenter's highlight reel each weekend. But he's putting up numbers where he can utilize the game, he keeps his mistakes to a minimum, and he makes sure that his team wins games. And right now, he must be doing a darn good job right now because his team's undefeated right now. That's like you compare AJ to in the NFL right now.
And another quarterback outside of Alex Smith that many people, even myself, would compare AJ to. Remember when Tom Brady first got drafted? They said Tom Brady couldn't avoid the rush. Next, great physical strength. Next, great physical toughness. Doesn't have the rocket arm. Tom Brady went on, behold, 3 Super Bowl titles. So ESPN analysts can only see what's on paper. They don't see how a quarterback can actually be until they get on the field. And according to Nick Saban, he would rather have a quarterback to just keep the possessions to Alabama versus a guy that's going to have all the big statistics and numbers, but turn the ball over and cannot win and cannot keep possession. Well, going off of that segment to the Alabama Crimson Tide defense, according to Kentucky running back JoJo Kim, freshman running back, he put out some words on Twitter and through some Kentucky sports media outlets that he guaranteed that the Alabama defense will get scored on. Be that as it may, the Crimson Tide defense did, but it was late in the fourth quarter, and if I'm running back JoJo Kim, I go look at my 6 foot, 190-pound receiver, Jabez Blue, and take him out the dirt, because he got that one touchdown for the Crimson Tide on a post route and a pass from Maxwell Smith to Jabez Blue for the Kentucky Wildcat touchdown. But despite that, Alabama's defense held Kentucky to 170 total yards of offense, that's 76 passing, 94 rushing. They held them to only 13 first downs and 2 third down conversions. So despite the score, Alabama's defense played well next week.
Absolutely. C.J. Mosley again shows why he's one of the best linebackers.
He has tremendous instincts.
Probably the best linebacker I've seen play at the University of Alabama. Yes, there have been so many people, but C.J. Mosley just takes the cake. He just runs out there and just makes plays. He not only has been making plays, he's been so much more in the communication role in defense, understands where people need to be and where they need to make a play. So that's why I believe that even if we still have these cornerback issues, I still believe that our linebacking core and even our safeties with Vinny Cincinnati and Landon Collins, and especially when Ha comes back, will be able to clean out those coverage things. But our defense has been playing outstanding these past couple weeks. I think they're the best defense in college football, hands down now. There's no really comparison. Stanford lost to Utah this week, so there's really nothing that I can say with that. And that's the only team I can say is comparable to the Tide. Ohio State got 30 points scored on them by Northwestern. I have to repeat that again. But going back to how well they played, I think Nick Saban was extremely proud of how they played until the touchdown. But other than that, the first unit continues to come out and play like they're the best team in the country. Until somebody says something otherwise, I agree with that. Also, C.J. Mosley needs to be a top 5 pick. He just doesn't get as much credit as he does. That man has NFL written all over him.
The Alabama defense right now is giving up 11.2 points per game. With Nick Saban being a defensive-minded coach, how much does he instill into this team not getting beat deep, playing tight coverage, understanding your responsibility, and basically playing for each other?
He teaches mostly trust. That's more than anything. You gotta trust your teammates. You gotta trust. C.J. Mosley's gotta trust that Vinny Cincinnati has his cornerbacks and defensive backs on the spots they need to be at. The defensive tackle, C.J. Mosley's also gotta trust the defensive tackles to say, y'all can break through the line or y'all can make gaps in the line so we can shoot through and get the tackle in the backfield. So it's more of a trust factor, but having a coach that's so defensive oriented is such a key fact for this defense. Because I'm going to be honest, most of the talent on this team is on the defense, although we do have a lot of weapons on offense at running back and at wide receiver. I just think that this defense has a lot of hidden talents in it that has not been utilized, hasn't been seen, not utilized, hasn't been seen this entire season yet. And as the season goes on, we've seen a little bit more of the Landon Collins stepping up, a special teams player, to more of a defensive player where he stepped up his game a lot. See players like that, and we're going to keep seeing more and more of the defense. And with Saban finding those players on the practice squad or finding those players that have been second string or working their way up the roster is a key part as to why this defense has been so dominant over the season.
And that's why you play, that's why you practice. You practice to get a shot and you play to win the game. And that's exactly what Alabama is doing right now. But be there as it may, Alabama defeated Kentucky 48-7 in their win at Lexington. But this week, guys, the Arkansas Razorbacks come to Bryant-Denny Stadium. And for the first time since 2005, the Arkansas Razorbacks have a legit running core. In 2005-08, they had Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and Peyton Hillis that just terrorized the SEC in college football. This year, under new first-year head coach Brett Bielema out of Wisconsin, now with Arkansas, the Razorbacks have Alex Collins and Jonathan Williams. And when most people think, these two guys are mine, I love Alabama fans, and I have Trent Richardson and Mark Ingram. They're both built low, they're strong, they can get yards with their contact, they're durable, and with Alex Collins, he has enough speed to go up that power. Starting off with Maxwell, Coach Saban has called this game a very physical matchup. Alabama's done pretty well handling the run thus far, but they have a dynamic duo coming at them at Williams and Collins. How do they assess this?
Well, it says exactly as you said. This is a physical battle. Two really, really physical backs in Arkansas, which they're young, so as they mature, they will get better and better. But for their first year, very impressed with the running back core in Arkansas, as they should be. But it comes from up front. It's going to be a battle in the trenches. It's going to be our O-line versus their D-line, our D-line versus their O-line. And really, at the core of it, is there a way that Arkansas is going to get better than us by the time the game starts? Really, I'd say no, because they're still young. This is still the first year under Brett Bielema. Yes, a coach can come in out of nowhere and completely beat us, all of Kevin Sumlin. But I just don't see it happening with this Arkansas team. You've got Brandon Allen as their quarterback.
Who's not really proven yet.
Who's not really proven. I mean, he had his first career start against us last year because Tyler Wilson was out via the Louisiana Monroe game with an arm injury, and we completely destroyed him at his house, 42-0. I just don't see Arkansas being as angry as they were, especially after the loss this week to South Carolina at home. Just with that, is going to muster up enough energy to come up and compete with the Tide, touchdown to touchdown, with that area of toughness. But the Tide will completely be ready with them under Coach Nick Saban.
On to you, Ivan. Ivan, if you're defensive coordinator Kirby Smart in this situation, you're looking at your defensive line with Ed Stinson, Xavier Dixon, Brandon Ivory, Adrian Hubbard. What are you telling this defensive line right now as you're seeing two 200-pound plus backs coming at you full speed? What are you telling this line?
Win the battle in the trenches and clog all the holes that need to be filled. That's what the linebackers are going to have to do as well. They're going to have to make sure, yes, these are going to be physical backs. Yes, it's going to be a physical game. But you're getting into a physical fight with a physical team. It's just Alabama hasn't faced many teams that have been as physical this season. You know, A&M, who's obviously more of a finesse team, they like to pass the ball almost on every play.
And you have to start to show them.
My guess would be Virginia Tech would be the only team that could be somewhat similar to this, but it didn't exactly go very well for Virginia Tech at all either. So I just don't see Arkansas doing a lot. Going back to what Maxwell said, Alabama does have somewhat of a bad reputation for getting handled by no-name coaches or no-name teams. Of course, I wouldn't consider, unlike Maxwell, I wouldn't consider Kevin Sumlin. He had a great career at University of Houston, but I still say he was a decent coach. He should have been watched out for. Nobody saw Johnny Manziel coming last year at that point. But I don't think this will be one of those games like last year. I still think that because this happened the past 2 years where we've had a team that's coming to our home turf and shocked us on our home field at night, I just don't think that will happen this year. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The saying is, you fool me 3 times, I don't know what happens next, but that's not a good sign either. But you can't have that happen 3 years in a row, and I think that team is watching out. And we also have one of the longest road game win streaks in all of college football right now. Hadn't been talked about enough. It hasn't been talked about enough. I don't know why that stat doesn't keep getting popped out there. I can't remember the last time we lost a road game. In the past 2 seasons, we've lost home games. But I just think this is not a good This Arkansas team is going to be physical, but they're going to learn the Tide can be just as physical to even more physical than they are.
We mentioned Brett Bielema, this being his first year here in Arkansas, coming out of Wisconsin, where he had coached Russell Wilson. But Brett Bielema is known for, as Maxwell coined, the ground and pound game. He's known for the ground and pound game and mix it in a little bit with the play action pass that he brought from Wisconsin to Arkansas right now. But he doesn't have Russell Wilson anymore. He has Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen so far this season, 864 passing yards and 8 touchdowns. He's going up against one of the most physical defenses that he will face this season. If you're head coach Brett Bielema Maxwell, how do you get Brandon Allen ready to play?
You tell him to throw the ball to his 2 huge wide receivers. 6 foot, they all average 6 foot in height. I mean, they're huge. Just find a way to get them the ball. Get the ball to your playmakers. Try to get the run established. Keep everybody in line.
And have good footwork in that pocket.
That's a lot to ask from somebody who's playing a team that pretty much introduced him to college football last year. But I think the real big challenge for Brandon Allen is not letting penalties just completely stop and drive. That's exactly what happened last week against South Carolina. Penalties killed them. And they were driving on South Carolina until Connor Shaw finally figured it out and was just scoring touchdowns all day long. But to get ready for this game, really he's just got to have his fundamentals down. That's all I can say. He's got to be able to check his reads, take what the defense gives him, even if it's not a lot. He's just got to find a way to not make negative plays.
Do you think Brett Bielema goes more screen pass, dump pass, drag pass here, or if there are some shots deep, will he take those shots downfield?
I think he's going to try to take a bunch of shots downfield. I mean, he's got the big enough receivers for it. His receivers are very physical. Our cornerbacks are physical, but we have young quarterbacks, and we have been shown to be taking advantage in coverage. So I think he's going to try, but if that doesn't work, I think he's going to try to go with the ground and pound game. Trust his offensive line and trust his 2 running backs. I mean, they have been giving them a stable amount of offense all season. So I don't see them going away from that just because it's Alabama.
Maxwell, you just mentioned that Arkansas does have 2 physical receivers. Those physical receivers being 6'1", Javonte Herndon, who is leading the team with 18 receptions for 288 yards and 4 touchdowns, and freshman tight end Hunter Henry, who's 6'6", has 14 receptions, 276 yards, and a touchdown. Since the A&M game, Ivan, Alabama's receivers have done a pretty decent job of taking away the opponent's best receiver. So what do they need to do to continue in this game doing so and trying to handle Herndon and Hunter Henry?
They need to change their game plan a little bit more. I know ever since the A&M game we have been utilizing, but ever since the A&M game we've had a substantial drop in the talent that has come and faced the Crimson Tide. Again, Ole Miss was about against the best opponent we faced since A&M, and obviously we handled them pretty easily. Of course, we shut down their receivers, but those are 2 completely different receivers at Ole Miss than there are over here at Arkansas. They're more physical. They like to jam. They don't mind if you jam them at the line because they know they can stiff arm you themselves and fight back. That's, I think, is going to be one of the problems this week. I think, I'm not seeing a big game from them still, but I just think that they are going to, there might be a little pass interference on this because it's going to be so physical. These guys are going to go at it. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if a little scuffle broke out once in a while, a little pile around everybody because these Alabama cornerbacks like to be physical at some points, but the Arkansas wide receivers like to be physical at all times. They like using their arms. They like using their bodies. They like bullying people around. At Arkansas, of course, that's not always what they do as a team, but their receiving core likes to do that. So I just think that'll be a good thing, but just have to make sure that you don't get caught in this trap of they don't want to get physical, so I have to get physical too. So do what you do best, utilize what you do best.
It's always going to play a physical ball game, but guys, we know that history is made to be rewritten and records are made to be broken. And the Alabama-Arkansas game, for most fans, it's usually been played in September. And it's usually the game that helps open in Alabama's SEC schedule. So for the first time in a while, this game's going to be played in October. Is that a little eerie? Is that a little odd? Or is it just good scheduling? Or, I mean, what's going on with that?
Well, I mean, we had the Texas A&M game really kind of replace that. I mean, would you really want to play Arkansas at the beginning of the season, or would you want to play Texas A&M at the beginning of the season? I guess it's scheduling. But, I mean, when they did join this side of the conference, so, I mean, we had to make room for Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a more appealing school to go to and play against, even without Johnny Manziel. So, I can understand where they're kind of starting off our SEC schedule now. I don't know if it's going to continue as a historic trend like Arkansas has the past couple of years, but I do understand where the schedule came from, why it's like that.
I mean, it's Arkansas. It's not LSU versus Alabama. It's not Tennessee
Are
versus
you throwing Arkansas in the same boat with Kentucky?
I'm not throwing the same boat with Kentucky now. I'm not going that far. But I mean, it's not like they're a main rival of our university. It's not like it's been a timing tradition. It's not the third Saturday in October. It's not Tennessee always. We have to play them at the same time every year. It's Arkansas. We really don't have a rivalry with them. Arkansas is in the SEC East, so they have their own things to do in the SEC East. They've got bigger fish to fry, like Missouri, Georgia, Florida. They've got teams over there they have to deal with. And like Maxwell said, A&M is a much more appealing opponent right now to start the season off. Now I highly doubt that they'll make that a primetime game each year, week 2 or beginning of the season, week 3, where they face A&M to start the season off. I think it'd be smarter if the SEC actually did a rotation to where each team did it. I mean, having a marquee game like Texas A&M versus Alabama to start the season off, I wouldn't say
The ratings would be
the
high.
ratings would be higher. I'd say maybe having the best, maybe having a South Carolina versus Texas A&M wouldn't be bad, or having a South Carolina or having a Texas A&M versus Missouri. But I know that's reserved for the last week of the season since they're the final two teams that have entered the SEC in recent times. But I just feel like this, it really doesn't matter. I doesn't no disrespect to the Arkansas or their fan base or any of their university at all. I just feel like it's not a rivalry game, so it doesn't matter when we play them. And most of the time, no offense, it's been the same result anyway. So.
Well, going back to the Alabama offense, of course, Kenyon Drake, TJ Yeldon, very fortunate that the turnovers they had were not cashed in on by Kentucky. But going on here to this week against Arkansas, what can TJ Yeldon and Drake, and most importantly, offense running backs coach Burton Barnes do in helping them protect the ball a little bit better? Start out with you, Max.
You got to hold it lower. You got to know that now they're going to come in for the strip every single time. I know the defensive coaches tell you that, but when you're out on the field and you're going out to hit somebody, usually you're just trying to make the tackle, trying to make the play. But now they know that TJ Yeldon, who has fumbled a lot in his career, I would say a lot, that's too much.
4 times.
Four times, but they've all happened in crucial moments, except for the Kentucky game. He's prone to fumbling in big time situations sometimes. I wouldn't say prone. I know I'm taking back a lot of my words, but you get what I mean. If you've watched TJ Yeldon play, he does fumble in kind of big situations. Texas A&M last year, Texas A&M this year, LSU last year, this year against Kentucky once, and then Kenyon Drake kind of fumbled a little bit against Ole Miss, and this game. I mean, I don't know if there's a room for concern because obviously they're going to elevate their play after the fumble because Nick Saban's going to run into him, rip into him. But I say, you got to run it lower and protect the football at all costs. You don't want to cost your team the game or possession. That's really what happened during the Kentucky game. They could have scored 14 points or 21 points, but it was drop passes and those turnovers completely stopped our momentum until we started getting going again in the second quarter.
And along with Coach Saban being a stickler for perfection, being a stickler for execution, he's a stickler for ball security. He would rather have a running back gain nothing than to gain a whole bunch of yards and fumble the football. Saban's all about keeping that possession, keeping the clock going, and just being efficient in both running and passing the football. So now on to you, Ivan. You mentioned that sometimes TJ Yeldon doesn't hold the ball correctly. What does he need to do to hold the ball correctly, get a good grip on that football so as he enters the hole, defenders can't poke it out or use their helmets to punch it out?
High and tight. That's the basic thing that every running back's taught from high school, college, and in the pros. High and tight. I've seen some pro running backs nowadays. DeMarco Murray, for instance, holds the ball with both two hands sometimes when he runs now because he's had fumbling problems as well. Adrian Peterson had fumbling problems in the NFL and in his collegiate career as well. They need and he said high and tight was what I wasn't doing. That's what he needs to do. He needs to learn to hold the ball correctly. I know running backs get accustomed to holding the ball a certain way because they can feel comfortable and they feel like their speed can be more utilized if they hold it a certain way. But obviously that's not working for TJ. I don't know. I've seen too many times where it seems like AJ's handed off to him and he's dropping immediately from the handoffs. Not even, the play didn't even get started. I've seen it way too many times. I believe we saw it in the Colorado State game. Luckily, somebody found the ball and we were lucky enough to keep possession of the ball. I just believe he needs to change the way he holds the ball. I mean, it goes back to every time. You make a mistake once, it's all right. We can correct that. Make a mistake multiple times, that's going to go on to kill you later on in the SEC slate.
Well, hopefully, running back coach Burton Barnes and the rest of the members of the Alabama staff can help Kenyon Drake and TJ Yeldon kind of get over the fumbling issue. Like I mentioned, in the game against Kentucky, we kind of saw Amari Cooper get back to catching the football, he along with Kevin Norwood. So this week against Arkansas, do you see Amari Cooper building, getting a little bit more receptions in this game, or will it be once again a game where you see DeAndre White, Chris Black, and Christian Jones have the majority of the attention?
I still see the other receivers having more attention than Amari Cooper. And the only reason I say that is I know he had a decent game last week. I still say when the Tennessee game comes along here, I believe that'll be the game he finally comes out. That'll be a game where we really need him a lot. Because Tennessee showed against Georgia, even though Georgia was highly injured that game, that they can hang around with good teams in the SEC. That they can do things on defense to bother a great offense like Georgia has a great offense. So with that being said, I feel like this week will be one of the last few weeks we don't see the real Amari Cooper come out. I feel like this will be the week. He does get his catches. He does do this. He does show some flashes. I just feel like Tennessee and an LSU game the very next week will be the 2 games where he finally shows up and we finally say, all right, there he is. He's been hanging around. And I just believe this injury is just it's been lingering a little bit, but we can slowly see as the season goes on and the season progresses that it's starting to heal completely, and he's starting to get more confidence that he can be back as a player like he was last year.
Maxwell, how pivotal it is for receivers to keep that knee and that ankle healthy, because you push off on that knee and that ankle when you're running up your routes, whether it be post routes, drag routes, screen routes, even out routes. You have to be able to push off and get down the field. So Amari Cooper is healing and getting back on the field. How important it is for receivers to keep it healthy?
Well, it's healthy. It's important to keep your foot healthy because that's what makes you a receiver. What makes you that type of receiver. Possession receivers, have really keep their Achilles, nice and healthy all the time. But Amari Cooper, he's a speed receiver. Even though he has very good hands, he needs his foot to be healthy. I mean, just like everybody in football. I know that sounds stupid, but Amari Cooper needs his speed. Of course, he can break away from players and has good positioning when he goes up to catch the ball, but his bread and butter is his speed to break away from receivers and to catch the ball like that. So it's very important to have his speed. I mean, that's his one thing. It's not his one thing that makes him important, but it is his bread and butter. I just say it like that.
Receivers do need speed, not just to break away from corners and safeties, but to go up, make the catch in traffic, and get down the field for big gains and hopefully a touchdown in the making. But now we're going to get on to our predictions for Alabama and call them Hogs of Arkansas here at Bryant-Denny Stadium, which will be on this Saturday. So starting off with the man in the black shirt, Ivan White. Ivan, predictions for Alabama and Arkansas.
I'm going to keep my prediction plain and simple. I feel like Alabama will dominate this game. Arkansas is a team that's going to be on the rise for that physicality they used, like I've been saying it the whole pregame right now. It's just going to come back to bite them because they're fighting fire with fire, and they're not going to win.
Do you see 40s this week?
No, I don't see 40s. Because I say it's going to be 52-7. That's going to be my final score for this game. I don't see 40s. I see them getting past the 40s. They're going to utilize. They're going to make sure they get those points back from the mistakes they made last week. Trust me. And they're going to send a statement because they've got 2 pretty decent opponents coming to Tuscaloosa in the next 2 weeks after this game. So they've got to make sure that they make a statement for this game as well.
52 to... How much Crimson Kool-Aid are you drinking right now?
A lot, but still. So we're enough to make a good prediction.
52 to... You're on a hangover from that Crimson Kool-Aid, aren't you? 52 to 7. Maxwell.
I kind of have to agree with Ivan a little bit, except for them scoring. I just don't see this defense giving up points against Arkansas. Yes, they're a very physical team, but as you can see from last week, our defense hangs on every single point that is scored upon them, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. This week, I think they really wanted to beat the challenge of Kentucky and stop them from even scoring a touchdown. And I think they're going to go back on that pace of not having a touchdown scored at Bryant-Denny Stadium for another week or so. So I'm going to go about 42-0, 48-0 around that range, because this offense is not going to have the turnovers that they did last week and really stopping them from doing something. This isn't me being a biased fan. This is me watching what I see. What I see from the team is that Alabama is just going to run all over this team, metaphorically and physically. I mean, who's got the more physical offensive line? Well, last week we showed it. Our offensive line is very physical. Yes, it's Kentucky, but Kentucky can be physical.
No. Did Cyrus Quant have a penalty in that game?
I don't know. I can't.
I don't believe he did. Trust me, I've been watching.
He's been watching it, but that's not for me to call. That's the officials. They will call this game is over. But I'm gonna go 48-42 in that range. I don't see Arkansas scoring a point against this team.
I must be the odd man out here, because you're going 52-7. You're going either 42-0 or 48-0. Does Arkansas use trash talking to motivate Alabama like the past 2 teams have been doing?
Not really.
If they're smart, they won't.
Or you're going 42 or 48-0, and you're going 52-7. I'm actually going to go. My score is going to be in the 40s. But I'm actually going to say I'm going to cut the Razorbacks some slack. I'm going to go with 42-14. I'm actually going to say 42-14, and the reason being is because of the fact that Brett Bielema, the one thing that Brett Bielema is starting to instill in Arkansas is pride. And and Arkansas is a bit more talented than Kentucky. So I'm going to say Brandon Allen and the running back core of Arkansas will get at least 2. They won't be early in the game. They'll probably be middle of the fourth quarter. They will get 2 on Alabama. The final score will be 42-14, in my opinion.
So when we're having the second straight unit
On
defense.
Okay. The second string. If they keep the first string unit in, I might have to change my score. But the second string unit's in, my final score is going to be 42.
Let me just ask a quick question. Over under 1 touchdown pass for Blake Simmons this week. What do y'all think?
I'm going to say he's going to get 1. He'll get 1
touchdown pass.
Touchdown pass.
He'll get 1.
I'm going under. I don't believe he'll get 1 this week.
I think he'll get 1 touchdown pass. He'll get 1 touchdown run. So we're going to say he'll get a touchdown pass, a touchdown run. That's my bold statement for the week.
We're thinking we're going to be he's going to be in there, really. But the way he's been improving and they're giving him more of the playbook to use, I wouldn't say it's out of his range to get 1 touchdown. Passing the ball. I don't think he's going to be running the ball a lot. We're not going to see him run the ball a lot.
We're not going to see him in the Wildcat.
Yeah, we're not going to see him in the Wildcat or pull that draw play that he usually does. I think we're going to see a lot of him, more of his short passes. See if he can try a deep ball pass in one of the games.
That's what I'm looking to see. Can he throw a post route or a deep route? That's what I'm looking to see.
Right. I think we're going to see a lot more playbook from him. And I mean, if there's one offensive coordinator that can build an offense around a running quarterback, come on, it's Doug Nussmeier. I know we're at the University of Alabama, but I mean, come on. This is Doug Nussmeier.
Completely it is Doug Nussmeier. But that's all for the predictions, and that's all for the Alabama-Arkansas segment on 15 County. Coming up next year, we're going to get you caught up on the SEC and some national action that will be taking place this week right after this.
All right, I'm going to stop it real quick. All right, what time?